Sanbonani Dumelang Molweni. Welcome to Sia's Couch. In isiXhosa we say akho ntsimi yankosi, which means there are no holy cows. So here we're talking about everything, and today we're talking about finances. I know it's uncomfortable, but you really have to do it. So today we're talking about finances with Metropolitan. On today's episode, we're joined by a representative from Metropolitan. His name is Tolu Kiyetsi, and he'll be talking to us about this uncomfortable topic of finances. A lot of us don't want to talk about it because, well, I don't want my neighbor to know how much I earn. But we really need to talk about it and see how we can better ourselves. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Hi, Sia. Thank you very much. I'm well, thank you.
So thank you for joining us. So let's jump right in. I think a lot of people are very wary of saving, and they'll tell you, but I don't even earn enough money, so how am I supposed to save? So talk to us about that.
Yeah, I think it is indeed a very emotive and at times very secretive issue to talk about, issue of money. I think nobody wants to sort of brag and talk about their finances, but I think the reality is that when it comes to saving, it's not how much you earn. I think there's an old adage that says if you can't take care of the penny, you can't take care of the pounds.
Aha.
I think it starts from there to say all of us, irrespective of our income levels, we've got the ability and the potential to save the little that we have. So to take care of the penny so that the pound can take care of itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So when we're talking about finances, we really start with saving. And with Metropolitan today, they're saying sisonke in saving, all of us. Doesn't matter your income group, we are all together. So when we talk about that, tell us, why is it important to save?
I think there's a number of things that we often say as Metropolitan. I think the first one is says, what matters to you matters to us. And I think we understand the importance of finances as we are among the leading financial institutions in the country. So I think the key issue is to say there are many ways in which working South Africans can actually begin to save their money. It is important because when you start with saving, we always say you must have a plan. Why do you want to save? What is it that you want to save the money for? And there's a number of ways in which people say they want to save the money for.
So why should we be saving? Are we saving for a rainy day? Are we saving for the kids' education? Are we saving in case I lose my job? Why should we be saving?
Well, I think the first thing first is, what is your plan? One, you could be saying, I want to start saving because I want to, in the next year or so, you have to have long-term and short-term savings plan. I think the short-term savings plan, among other things, could be in the next year or so, I want to go on holiday. Or you want to save because you want to build a deposit for your car. Or you want to save because you have seen a beautiful lady, you're saving for Lobola. Those are short-term savings plan. And of course, there will be long-term savings plan, and among them could be you want to save for your kids' education, or you want to create an investment for your family. So those are the kind of things that you save your money for. But at the heart of it, like I said, it all starts with the plan. Why are you saving? You ought to understand what is the goal that you want to achieve with your savings plan. And once you have got that, then you start meticulously following that plan and consistently making sure that you put something every single month towards that goal.
Now, we need to be realistic. You, as the viewers of Sia's Couch, you know, this is South Africa. There's high fuel costs. There are travel costs that people have to account for. So when you consider all of those things, the traveling, people have to travel from very far distances to get to work, and obviously there's fuel, there's load shedding, which affects the travel times and the costs thereof. So when you factor in those things, is it still possible to save?
Well, I think all of us, we've got daily and monthly expenses that we incur. I think in the midst of all the expenses that we have, I think one of the key things that we must start considering particularly during these difficult economic times, is to start scaling down on the things that are not essential, that are not important.
Ouch.
The things that you can do without. And I think we know there's a number of them. I mean, you can give just, there are people that spend a huge sums of money on airtime. I mean, it doesn't sound much, but if you have to think that on a daily basis you spend 50 rand just to buy airtime, you work it out over a period of 30 days, how much is that? So again, some people would say they want to eat out twice a week. Now, is it necessary? Some people say...
It's really nice to have, though.
Yeah. Well, it is necessary because if times are tough, the first thing that you need to start looking at is what are the things that you can cut down on? Not that, in other words, you can do without them. I mean, if you were to eat home and not go out, what would you lose? If you were to say there are people that every weekend they go out, and if you to start asking how much they spend on those outings, eating out, going out, you could say it's socializing and whatnot, but how much are you spending on that? And if we live in these tough economic times, can you do some of those things? And the answer is yes. I mean, if you're just thinking buying 50 rand airtime or 150 rand airtime, you buying somebody else, if you have to cut on that, at the end of the day, you could start working out and actually I've got a saving of X. And the other thing that I think we ought to be looking at is also to look at some of the things that we can pay off. Because with all the debts that we have, they probably are associated with 3 other services. The service fees, interest rates are attached to them, and it's admin fee. So if you pay off some of the debt or you consolidate them, you actually can have a savings. So you ought to become smarter with your money.
And these are figures that a lot of South Africans don't really know. People know their capital debt and not the other little amounts, the T's and C's.
Yes. I mean, those are there, and they take a large chunk of your money. There are people who, when they do consolidation, they save some up to 2,000, 3,000 rand just by consolidating, because on every loan that you have, there are 3 other underlying costs that go with it: service fee, admin fee, interest charges that are associated with it. So just by looking at those things, consolidating, you do make a savings. So I think we ought to really start looking at the things that we have, the things that we need, and the things that we want, and begin to say, which of this list that I have in my basket can I do with? And including, if you think of just going out on a grocery shopping, how many people would walk into a supermarket, and all of a sudden they don't even have a list of the things that they want to buy? What does that mean? If you don't have a list of the things that you need, you will end up having a trolley full of things of which half of them you actually don't need. So I think we ought to look at those things, because including traveling. By the way, if you think of traveling, if I talk about eating out, going out with friends and whatnot, if you've got your own vehicle, if you're to cut down on your traveling, you save on cost. Not only cost, on the maintenance of the vehicle as well. So there are many ways in which, even in difficult times, you can still be smart with your money. And it's just to look at your own expenses and start saying, where do I cut down?
Quick tip from me: never go grocery shopping on an empty stomach. You'll end up buying the whole store.
Absolutely.
Never, ever, ever. But now, the reality of South Africa is that when you look at our makeup as a country, there are a lot of single parents. So what useful or practical tips can you give our viewers who are single parents, and how they can save for their children, considering that they are not in dual income households?
Well, I think you are absolutely right, and I think that shows that South Africans generally are over indebted. And I think what becomes key to single parents, because it works both ways, it's really about saying, if I've got kids, what is it that I can, what is the kind of future that I want to create for my kids? It goes to say, what is my financial goal that I have for my children? In most parents, what we want for our kids is probably to give them the things that we never had as parents. And one of those could be better education. And if that is the goal for your kids, you then have to say, do I have an educational plan for my kids where I can put money aside on a monthly basis that will be towards their education? The second thing, of course, for single parents, it could really be about, I want to spoil my kids once a year or once every second year, or depending on your needs. You can then have a short-term saving whereby you then put the money aside for holiday. And of course, savings is generally important because it also helps you for the unforeseen circumstances, so that when some eventuality happens, there's an event that you did not plan for, there's a small nest that you can go rather than go and borrow. So those are some of the things that I can share with you.
Okay, now Ntate Tlo has already told us that you need to have a plan. You can't just wing it, right? But how do we adopt a saving culture as a country? How do we get to a place where, regardless of your income group or your tax bracket, how do we get to that place where each of us in our little corners are all saving?
I think South Africans are very creative. I think from time immemorial, I mean, you and I see probably, I'm older than you. Back then, I think the South Africans have always been finding different ways of savings. And I think to this day, even at Metropolitan, we're actually saying Sisonke in saving, meaning that if you're to go out on the street, in the township, in the suburbs, in the village, and talk to South Africans, they will probably share with you a myriad of ways in which we can start to save. One of those things that I think it's prevalent across the majority of Black South Africans is Mogodisang, or stokvels, or help maker, or street committees, where a group of people come together religiously, consistently, on a monthly basis. They put something together. That's the one thing that you can use, the one vehicle that you can use. The other one, of course, could be having a savings plan that says, I'm going to buy a small investment product that on a monthly basis I'm going to put 200 rand. You can start as little as maybe 50 rand or 100 rand. The key to that is the discipline, because once you start doing that, and then the reality is that after 2-3 months of consistently paying that amount, you start getting used to it, and that becomes a way of your life. It becomes part of, if you like, your expenses, but it's an expense that is actually building an asset for yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you've been giving us tips and giving our viewers tips, but what is the best advice, financial advice, someone has ever given you?
Well, as a young, being born in the rural areas of our country, one of the lessons that we've been taught as young boys, when you start working, your parents would always say your first salary you send to your parents. And what your parents would do with that salary, they would actually buy a car for you. And for many people have never understood why would the parents ask you to send money. It's not to squander it or to misuse it. They actually start building a savings plan for you with you not knowing. And they will go and buy a car, and they'll buy a female car. And when they buy a female car, you can ask yourself why. They buy it because they know it's going to give birth to cows. And for me, I think it's still the best way in which I think as young people, when you start working, you must start thinking about the future. And our parents have always been very wise in terms of assisting and guiding us to start investing at an early age.
Wow, Ntate Tlo, thank you so much. So whether it is that female cow, or it's a stokvel, or it's food stamps, whatever you do, you need to save. So until next time, until you join us again here on Siya's Couch, save those randelas.